This tutorial will go over what baseline data is and how to enter it onto Oncorps. So, what is baseline data? Baseline data is information about how your youth was performing in school before being added to your focus list and receiving your support. Think about it as the before picture of your youth's ABCs. There are two things to keep in mind when entering baseline data. First, this data should be coming from before the youth was added onto your focus list, and second, it needs to be recent. So think about the most recent school year, semester, quarter, or month before you began providing support. At the beginning of the school year, this is usually data from the last school year. However, if you add a youth to your focus list in the spring, you may use data from the current year, such as the first month, quarter, trimester, or semester of school. Why do we need baseline data? There are two main reasons. First, it enables us to demonstrate that the young people we serve are in fact in need of Promise Fellow support. Second, baseline data enables us to demonstrate the impact the Promise Fellow program has on you. Without this baseline data, or the before picture, there is no way for us to show the impact, or the after picture, of Promise Fellows. If you have trouble accessing your baseline data, first contact your supervisor and then reach out to your trainer. Okay, let's talk about inputting baseline data. Log on to Oncorps. Go to Reporting, Submit Reports, Student Tracking. On this page, you are able to create a new student, volunteer, or group profile. Choose Student. Start by entering their basic information, their name, birthday, gender, and so on. If you can access it, do include the student's 13-digit MARS number. If you don't have this number right away, you can come back to enter it later. Note that the MARS number is not necessarily the school ID number. Select your host site and make sure the student is active. Select the boxes if your student can be described by any of the additional demographics. For student tracking dates, enter start date number 1 as the day you began supporting your student. You will only enter an end date if the student comes off of your focus list. An example of a student leaving your focus list would be if they moved. If that happens, then you enter an end date and change the student's status to inactive. Now, let's say that that student moves back and is once again on your focus list. Then you will enter a start date number 2 and change the status back to active. Note that in this example, the start and end dates are very close together. This is not typical. Your students should not be switching between active and inactive. A more likely example of a student being made inactive is if you and your youth support team decide to remove a student from the focus list. Now you will complete the baseline warning indicators. First, specify why a student was selected to be on your focus list. Acceptable reasons for a youth to be put on your focus list are behavior and attendance, attendance and academics, and behavior and academics. The student should not be on your focus list if they only need academic help or if they need support in all 3 ABCs. Now fill out the youth's academic score. This can be many things. The Alliance strongly recommends cumulative GPA for high school students and grades for middle school students. The academic score has to be numeric. So if you're reporting GPA, you would enter a numeric GPA. If you're reporting their English grade, you could use the percent that they earned in that class. Next, select the appropriate homework completion score, 0 through 4. For attendance, think about reporting period first. Work with your supervisor to get data from the previous school year. If you cannot access data from the past year, you may use the data from the current year. For example, if a student is added onto my list in October, I could use data from the first month of school. Remember that baseline data cannot overlap with the student's start date. Be careful and make sure baseline data is coming from before you began to provide support. Number of days in reporting period refers to number of school days. So even though there are 30 days in September, there were only 23 school days. Reporting period number is really asking for you to give the reporting period a name. I'm going to use September 2015. If you were using last semester's data, the name could be Semester 2, 14-15, because it was the second semester of the 14-15 school year. Now fill out the total number of excused and unexcused absences. The Alliance requires you to select days when reporting this data. Then fill out the total number of days arriving late to school, which is the Alliance's definition of tardy. Next, fill out the data on behavior. Select the reporting period you're using and label it correctly. Then enter the number of office visits and referrals, number of detentions, and number of out-of-school suspensions. If your site does not use detentions or out-of-school suspensions, do not put 0. Just leave that field blank. Otherwise, what you're reporting is that the student received no detentions or suspensions, when the reality is that that school just does not use such referrals. That's it! Hit save, and now you have complete baseline data for a student on your focus list.